For this process mapping exercise, we're going to take Ryan Reynolds' view of how the aviation gin process works. And I've done a bit of research on Ryan. Clearly, he's a very successful actor. The Proposal, a couple of Deadpools, and he's also made some very, very funny marketing videos. But he's the owner of Aviation Gin and has recently sold that to Diageo and has a long earn-out. So he has a vested interest in the success of Aviation Gin. So obviously, prior to the workshop, I've done a lot of research on that. I've also spent some time thinking about and looking at the Aviation Gin process. And also, it's important to do the research. So let's see how good it is. Cheers. Wow, that really is good. Right, let's get mapping. So let's hear from Ryan in his own words how the Aviation Gin process works.
You know, people come up to me all the time and they say, what makes aviation gin so delicious? Most of the time I run away because non-celebrities frighten me. But here is the answer.
It begins each morning at 4 a.m. The distillers of Aviation American Gin rise to greet the new day with 4 hours of silent meditation.
Fantastic. So let me stop you there and let's just define the first bit of the process. So prior to the workshop, I'd already created a process map inside Elements. I popped the Aviation Gin logo in there and I put down here that I thought the output was going to be sales and earn-out and the beginning would be demand. But listening to Ryan that things start at 4 a.m. and the first step here is the team meditate. So we can connect that. So that's the activity, they meditate. And you can add a resource and it was I think they said the distillers, there we go. So I've already preloaded some of those resources in. So the distillers meditate. So we have an output there and let's add an activity. So let's hear from Ryan what happens next.
From there, it's a quick scoot down to the grove. The citrus fruits are misted using only the tears of Aviation's owner, me, Ryan Reynolds.
Right, perfect. So they scoot down to the grove. So this must be after 4 hours. And I can just drag that resource across. Right, so what I think I heard here is that we missed the citrus fruits using tears. Right, so that presumably is the distillers again are doing that. And the input from there must be, we must have some tears. So we've got tears coming in and we're actually at the grove. So we must collect the tears. And I think they said they came from the owner, from Ryan. So let's go and add the resource. Owner, there we are, owner Ryan, we can add him. And presumably there must be some reason why we've got those tiers. So let's say it's because there was no Oscars. There we go. So now we have, they meditate, they scoot to the grove, they now miss the citrus fruits using the tears, and we've now collected the tears. So what happens next?
All of our botanicals are humanely caught, cage-free, and grain-fed. The reason some people don't drink gin is that strong juniper taste. So, after apologizing to each berry individually, we beat the living hell out of them, creating a smoother, more refined finish.
Let me pause you there for a moment. Let's work out what's happened there. So we said that we harvest the fruit, and who does that? Presumably not the distillers. Oh, so there aren't any pickers, so let's add that as a new resource. It's a human resource, there we are. So, and when's that ready? Presumably when they are ripe. And then we had a process there where we said we beat the berries. I wonder who does that. So let's add a resource there. Let's call those beaters, and we'll create a new resource for those. There we go. And this is when they have been picked. Fantastic. So we've now beaten the berries. So what happens next?
To ensure that heavenly taste, every bottle of aviation is ordained by the Unitarian Church of Fresno, California.
Okay, so we've just said we are, you just said that we ordain the bottles, and luckily we've already created But Ryan, I need to pause you for a moment there. We went from beating berries to having bottles already ready to be shipped. So I think there's a little bit of a process that's missed here. So maybe there's actually a process called actually make the gin. And presumably there's a process here called bottle the gin. So we now have beaten berries. We now have gin. And we now have bottled gin. Now, fortunately, there's another team who knows a bit more about making gin than probably Ryan does, who's already been mapping out the process for how we make gin. So instead of drilling down on this to get more detail, instead I'm going to import the process map that I know that they've already been creating. So instead of saying drill down new, I can say drill down import. And there's the make gin process. So I'm now going to import that, and I'm sure that the distillers are involved in making the gin, so we'll pop that one on there. And if we just roll over, we can see that there are some process diagrams already been built there by the distillers for exactly how they make the gin. Now, I could click there and we could drill down and have a look at that in more detail. So we can see here the process starts, finishes with gin, but it starts with citrus fruits, crushed berries, and mountain water rye. So those are, I don't see that at the higher level. I need to go back and make sure that we've got those other items on there. So let's just go back up. So what I heard here is that we also have water and rye coming in, but it feels like the citrus goes straight in there and they're not beaten. So it's only the berries that are beaten. So this is citrus fruits, and these are the berries, go that route. So again, the act of understanding a little bit more the lower levels gives us more input to make sure that that top level is correct. And obviously the output was correct, which is right. So we bottle the gin. We now bottle gin. We now have ordained bottles. So back to you, Ryan. What happens next?
And then, before it departs home, serenaded with the healing music of Sarah McLachlan.
So the next thing that happens is we serenade the bottles. And there is Sarah McLaughlin. So we'll add her. So then what? So back to you, Ryan.
Some might call this overkill, but the next time you visit your local mixologist and you murder that silky smooth aviation martini, well, who's the killer now, asshole? Aviation, an American original. Now owned by a Canadian.
Can I stop you there? I think we missed a couple of steps out. So presumably we need to now ship the gin so those mixologists can do their magic. And let's add a resource on there. So there's no shippers, so let's put shippers on there as a resource. And that would be ready to ship. So that obviously gives us sales. So orders for gin need to come in. So presumably there are orders for the gin coming in from customers. And then we have a process here called earnout. I'm assuming that once we have been paid, so we need to be paid for orders, and what we need there is an order coming in and confirmation of receipt. Of shipment. And an order. And there's Ryan's earnout. So there is a very quick process. The numbers aren't quite lined up. So if we just right mouse click, we can say, get all the numbers lined up. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4 correctly. We could even line up each of these diagram boxes so it's nice and neat and tidy. So we need to add a resource there. The bottlers. Just straighten that line up. Perfect. We now got a process here, draft. And really we want to publish it so we've actually got some version control over it. So I can say, let's make ready for release. Then we choose a release. So this was the workshop. So and I want to include not just this diagram, but also those lower levels, because I want to make sure that those are also signed off. So I've now said I want this to be released. And if I nip over into the application, the release page, I can then go and publish this. So here are just two diagrams, that top level diagram and the make gin one. So I'll hit publish. And it was successfully published. If I now go back to the diagram and do a refresh. So if we look now and look at the release tab, we can now see that we have a draft and a published version. So now we can start making changes, confident that we've got some version controller we can actually work out what has changed.